Klynstra and Mumtaz Mustafa, thank you so much for joining me on For Real. It's such a pleasure to have you both here today.
Thank you so much for having us. We're really looking forward to talking about our book.
So great. Laura, you are in Michigan, correct?
Yes.
Mumtaz, you are joining us from Pakistan.
That is right. Yes.
So we are such a global conversation, which is perfect because that's what you guys write about. So I love it that that's how we're starting. You two live in very different zip codes. Mumtaz, you are not usually in Pakistan, right? Do you live in New York?
Yes, I live in Brooklyn.
Okay, so still a couple time zones away. You live quite far apart geographically, and yet you work together from these very different spaces. And I'm wondering if we can start out, Mumtaz, I'll have you begin. What pulled you two together to become friends in the first place?
We actually worked together at HarperCollins, and that's how we became friends. Laura was actually my boss. And Laura would host the most epic parties.
Okay.
She had a potlucks, karaoke nights, margarita parties, and that actually was really refreshing for me. I lived in Rhode Island before that. I went to art school over there, but I always missed that sense of gathering. And I feel like Laura offered that in terms of friendship, in terms of bringing people together, in terms of an open home. So that's how we began. I attended a few of her parties and I knew I needed to be her friend.
Awesome. Because she's a delightful person. And also, who's not going to go over for a margarita night? I mean, seriously. Laura, tell me, did you know right away that Mumtaz was a kindred spirit, or did it take a while? You were her boss, so I don't know how that works in the art design world or book design world.
Well, when she first started, I wasn't her boss, and I don't think we connect. I mean, we didn't talk that much when you first started at Harper. So I think it was when we started actually working together on projects. And I mean, I knew she was awesome right from the start. I couldn't quite pronounce her name correctly because it was the first time I'd ever heard her name, which is great for me to learn new things about new people from different places. But as we started working together, we just started talking more and more, and it just, we both love to cook food and share food. I think that's one of our biggest things is not just to make it, but to have other people enjoy it. That's
Absolutely.
that's the best. That's our love language.
Yeah,
and we both have that. And I think that was one of the things that just made us totally connect.
That's so fun. I love that you're already talking about the heartbeat of this book. I've been stalking your Instagram for years. You guys have one that you do jointly, and it's beautiful and it's so invitational. So I'm not surprised that this book fits right into that. And I want to talk about that in just a second. First, Laura, you and I initially met because you designed the cover of one of my books. You designed the cover for my novel, Sugar, and I hunted you down and to thank you. That cover remains just of my novels. It's my favorite for sure. You just do beautiful work. Sometimes I look at your website just for a happy feeling, just to see your portfolio. And then Mumtaz, I'm newer to you, but I have seen your book design in your creative work, and it is absolutely stunning. So I'm wondering, as two very creative people, how you landed on the book world, because there are lots of places where you could funnel that gift for design, but you've both decided or ended up in publishing. So Mumtaz, I'll start with you, and then I want to hear from you, Laura, as well. How did you end up in books?
Sure. So I actually was an English major in high school. I loved writing, and this was in Pakistan. So when we applied to schools, and it's not as easy as it is to be in the US and apply. And at the time, there wasn't any online applications. Everything was this big book of the best colleges. My dad was, he wanted me to apply to a bunch of schools. So I applied to like 23 liberal arts schools and one art school. He also made me apply to Harvard, which I just did it to humor him. So it was interesting. On one day, I received my rejection from Harvard and acceptance from Tufts and from RISD, the Rhode Island School of Design.
Okay.
And Tufts had a fantastic English program. And RISD, my mom's an artist. I didn't actually study art growing up, but I was always inspired. She's also a fantastic cook. But so my dad was like, undergraduate, just go and have fun. Your siblings are studying finance, go and like do some art and, I went to fashion school. I did a fashion major, and I got to RISD, and I realized slowly, as I found myself gravitating towards all the bookmaking courses and the making meaning courses. And I wanted to do everything and anything to do with book design. And that kind of became my thing. So when I was applying, because I wanted to be in a scenario where while I didn't study, or I didn't, go to a liberal arts school and study English or writing, I was able to read and surround myself with books.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing better than to do it for a living and then get to be creative. So that's how I managed to, this is my first job, and I've been here for 25 years.
Love
so
that.
Yeah.
It was the right fit. Your dad was right.
But he's not right about, when you do your undergraduate, that does determine your future.
No, and you can't let him know, obviously, that he's that correct, because he'll just rub it in. So he was right on one count, an important count. Laura, how about you? How did you end up here?
I was an English major in my undergraduate, and I studied poetry as my emphasis, but I was also a studio art major. I had a double major, but I didn't really take any graphic design classes. So it wasn't really what the path was supposed to be. I studied painting in my my undergrad, and at the end of my studio art degree, I decided that I really wasn't that great of a painter. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go into the English side of things. And I went to graduate school at Emerson in Boston for writing and publishing. I wanted to be a writer. And then just somehow my first job was designing book interiors, and it just went from there. I've just been a designer, but I guess, I think Mumtaz and I both like writing. We both like reading.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of great that now we've written a book. So
that's extraordinary. I love that all three of us didn't end up in the place that we thought we would end up. I have a 21-year-old daughter now, and she's starting to ask all these questions. And I happily remind her all the time that I have a job that didn't really even exist. We didn't know what podcasts were. I didn't know that I would be a writer. I was a Spanish teacher, Spanish and ESL teacher, and I loved that, and have ended up in a completely different gig. So I think it's a wonderful, heartening reminder to all of our younger listeners that the route might be really circuitous, the way you get to where you end up. And that's a beautiful thing. You can just hold on, white knuckle it a little bit. You've got some good stuff around the corner. This new book by the two of you, called Gather and Graze, Globally Inspired Small Bites and Gorgeous Tablescapes for Every Occasion, is stunning. It's I mean, I'm not surprised. I knew. I've seen the work. I knew it would be gorgeous, but oh my gosh, you guys, this is a book that makes you want to call all of your friends immediately and host a party. I am in the busiest season ever. We've got all sorts of stuff going on here, and we have a graduating senior and a book launch and all sorts of stuff. And all I wanted to do was to drop everything and get out my largest charcuterie board or whatever platform I could get and call all of my friends. That's what this book does to us. So I'm super excited that it's coming out. I want to talk about the party piece. You've already mentioned, Mumtaz, that Laura is a party gatherer, party thrower. And I want to chat about the way that food brings people together. This is the idea that seems to be the heartbeat of this book. And also of you have a beautiful holiday baking cookbook, Laura, that we have in our home, and I've cooked out of many times. I've baked out of it. It's just absolutely beautiful. And that heartbeat is in that book as well. This must run deep, the idea. You've already mentioned it. So I want to ask you a question about your past. Try not to get nervous. I'm wondering if you remember the first time you realized that food was a powerful gathering force, not just something we do to fuel ourselves. Mumtaz, I'll start with you.
Sure. Since like growing up, and it's interesting you asked that question, because I am in Pakistan, and it is going to be, tomorrow is the final day of Ramadan, and which is a time of reflection and just not eating from sunrise to sunset. And then there's a celebration that's going to be a 3-day celebration about food. And everyone's going to gather. And, for us, it began at a very young age. We used to go to our grandmother's home. Everyone got together. Everyone's favorite dishes were cooked. And we sat down and we just, shared stories and shared moments. And, everyone from, ages of 90 to the age of 9 months was there. Everyone was welcome. And that kind of, there was lunch, there was breakfast, which was a certain thing. And then people would kind of just drop in all day. And there was a trolley just filled with fantastic foods. And it just began with that. But I feel like every single thing, be it a wedding, be it a funeral, be it a birth, be it a lunch or dinner moment, it's always around, like, even if we have one item at home, we will invite someone over. And for me, that is more than how much food there is. It's just having a place in your heart and hence at the table. So so I'm missing my grandmother today. She's not here for those gatherings, but I'm trying to create my own little moments with my cousins and my family to keep that thing going, because it's so important.
I want to follow up on that, because we don't do that very well in our community. And maybe this is an American culture thing in general. Somehow we switched and confused hospitality with hosting. And so I think it's important that you just mentioned it's not actually the abundance of food or the pretty spread, even though the spreads in this book, I mean, come on, they are gorgeous. I think what you're saying is, instead of moving from a place of scarcity and thinking, well, do I have enough? It sounds like you're encouraging us just to, the people are first, the open door is first. We figure out what's on the table later. That sounds really beautiful. And also, like, we don't do that very well. Laura, have you found that? I mean, this is interesting because you two have come from very different cultures of birth, and you've merged this idea of gathering. So what has that been like for you? What are your memories of food as a powerful gathering force?
I don't think that I can remember when I realized that it just seems like it was innate. It was always true. My mom loved to cook. She always had something new for dinner. She used to say one of her favorite questions was when me and my brother would ask her, "What's for dinner?" That was like,
that was her favorite.
Yeah,
sometimes
she liked that. I hate that question.
I was going to say that stresses me out.
She loves it. Yeah.
Awesome.
So it was just, and my mom, she used to cook for our church. She cooked Wednesday night fellowship dinners, which is kind of funny because I was reading your book description and it said something in there about how you had the Girl Scout, like
fake Girl Scouts. Totally.
Yeah.
We didn't get good dinners though from Laura's mom.
No, my mom made really great dinners. And she'd have to kind of scale them way up.
Honestly.
Make huge amounts of desserts and all of this stuff. And she'd cook in the church kitchen. And I don't think there was ever a point where I realized that food, it just always was. Yeah. Food was part of Christmas. It was part of family gatherings. It was part of funerals. It was part of everything when people got together and connected. And yeah, it's great if the food is delicious, but yeah, the fellowship is the more important part of any gathering.
So coach us through this, because you've both mentioned matriarchs in your lives. And I'm assuming their lives were a little bit different from ours. I don't know. I can't assume. I would think, Mumtaz, that your grandmother had a different daily schedule than you do in Brooklyn. Laura, I'm imagining that your mom probably had a little bit different schedule in her day. I don't know. My mom and I have a lot of similarities. And also, my life is just a little bit different from hers. And so I'm wondering, how do you bring that idea into 2024? Because it feels like we are pulled in a lot of directions. And I might be absolutely off on this. Maybe your grandma Mumtaz would say, listen, I was pulled. I just made the decision to gather people in my home. Do you have anything to say to modern listeners listening right now thinking, I don't know how I would do that. How do I fit this in? Mumtaz, you want to start?
Well, I guess there's a couple of things here. I mean, my grandmother was she was really active. She was always one of the benefits here is we do have a little more help in terms of the kitchen, in terms of other things. So, she would always, it was more about passing down the recipes from her mother And then we would have people, staff that would help with the cooking and help recreate the dishes. And because she was a single mom, she was doing many other things. So I think I kind of envision her and my own mother, who worked from the day all of us were born. Like they had busy schedules, but they made sure that the gathering piece was always there somehow. And now, I have a busy life, but I'm kind of known. All my friends will say, I'll just say, come over. And it'll sometimes just be whatever's in the fridge and I'll make something. Or it's my downtime. So I kind of take that time and put something together, and it brings me so much joy. And it just kind of, I hope I'm answering the question right. But I think we all just, in our busy, mad worlds, manage to find a place and a time and a scenario where we can just continue to welcome people in whatever capacity we can. And yeah, so that hasn't changed, I think.
You're a tribute to your mom and your grandma. Laura, do you have anything to add to that in your present circumstances, the season of your life?
Well, yeah, my life was quite a bit different than my mom. She was a stay-at-home mom. I work a job and freelance, and I write books. So sometimes the gathering just happens when we're doing a photo shoot. Like, okay, the photo shoot's done. Let's get some people over here to eat all this food.
That sounds wonderful. If I were not so far away, I would be at the top of that invite list, or just show up. That's awesome. This book, the main title is Gather and Graze. So grazers and gatherers, say that 12 times fast. These are not just delicious recipes for delicious food, and you have both savory and sweet, but the photos push it over the edge. So I'd love to talk to you about both how you chose the recipes and this kind of unique angle to have all these small bites, and how that worked with the photography, because I'm in awe of it. So first, let's talk about why small bites? Why that angle? Because there are lots of cookbooks in the world, and you get to choose for yours where you want to shine the light. So why the small bites? Laura, can you start with that?
It's kind of funny because when we picked this, we thought this will be easier. This is like a good place for us to start.
Okay.
I mean, if you look at some of the other books that are about boards with different items on them, a lot of those books have store-bought things on them. And I guess we thought, okay, we can do just a few recipes. And then, because it's Mumtaz and me, we made a recipe for everything. We didn't want anything on the board that was, I mean, there's a couple of things that you can buy from the store, but most of it is homemade. And because that's just kind of how we see food. We don't see food coming from a package. We see it coming from our ovens or from our stovetop. So it turned into something way, way harder than what we initially thought when we started. And we ended up, when we first laid out the book, it was over 500 pages.
Okay.
So we had to cut whole countries. We had to cut recipes, and we'd written the whole thing. We hadn't photographed the whole thing, but we had written the whole thing. And when we laid it out, it was, the publisher was just like, yeah, we can do over 400. Actually, we had to negotiate to get to 400, but
goodness,
not 500. There's no way we're going to do 500. So we had to make the hard choices.
Oh my goodness. That needs to be book 2. You've got half of the work already done. Mumtaz, what's the idea behind small bites? Why that instead of some other ways you could have gone?
I think also just the idea of it's the more people gathering finger foods, being able to make it more accessible, not having to sit down and, have like a roast chicken or like have a salad. Like you can walk around, you can pick something. So, and it was kind of also a bit of our love letter to all of these items and dishes that we had tried around the world and in various restaurants, and without appropriating any of it. And that's something Laura and I have been very kind of conscious about, that this is just our version, this is our love letter. And we wanted to kind of make it fun. We do have another book with bigger recipes, and it is something we intend to publish at some point. But this was going to be it. It also began with COVID, and the idea at the time that a gathering, are we ever going to gather again? Are we ever going to use a grazing board again? Are we going to need a sanitizer? Are we going to be in the same, like, how is it all going to happen? There were so many ifs and whats and buts.
Right.
So through that, we just, said, no, this has to be what it is. And it's going to be, everyone is going to gather and everyone is going to get together. And this is going to be a celebration. And this dark time will pass.
Right.
And so that's basically, we just got into it and then got super excited and came up with fun stuff.
Oh, it's so fun. When you think about the book now, are there any spaces, any sections or a recipe or anything in particular in all that you have written? And now I'm really asking a difficult question because apparently there were also 100 pages that you wrote that I didn't even get to see. But is there anything in particular that you think, oh man, that is such a great idea or great thing to make or gather around, particularly for summer? We're all headed into summer. Is there anything that stands out just off the top of your heads, kind of your favorite move for the next few months? Laura, do you have anything that comes to mind right away? There's a lot. I mean, you guys take us on a global trot. So I know this is like asking for your favorite child. So I apologize.
Well, I don't know if it's my favorite child, but it's definitely the best one for summer, I think, is the Heartland spread, which is we each did our own, like where we're from. And so the Heartland spread is from where I'm from. And the burgers that we did for those are on homemade brioche buns with onion jam. And they're really good.
Well, homemade, you had really me at homemade brioche.
Yeah,
for sure.
And that one is a good one because it's also got the heirloom tomatoes and the different things that are in season that are just the tastiest in the summer. There's strawberry shortcake jars, which are these little mason jars, which brings us back to the Heartland where we do all our canning and the different things with the fresh produce. So it's a fun one for summer.
I'm wondering, do you have an idea? I want to hear from you too, Mumtaz, in just a second about your fave for the summer. But do you have any ideas just in general, when you talk about this kind of gathering, when you're gathering and grazing and you're around a board or around a central space, what's the ideal number of guests or something like this?
It could be a lot. You would just have to scale up. But if it's only like 4 or 5, scale it down. Some of these boards have so many recipes on, you will not be able to do it unless you're doing it with a friend.
Right.
It's just not possible to cook everything and have it all fresh at the same time. So you shouldn't take these boards and say, oh, I have to do everything that's on here.
No, I think you
should pick and choose what looks good to you. And you can supplement it with packaged food. We just didn't want to write that into our book, but there's no reason that you can't say, you know what, I'm going to go I wanted to do these shortcake jars, but I'm going to buy the cake from the store.
Right.
And then I'm just going to assemble it myself. Or I'm going to fill my board up with crackers and cheese and different things that, fruits, fresh fruits. And you don't have to make every single thing. Pick the things that you want to make and that's it. Fill in with the rest. Or if you have a big party, enlist a friend to say, come over, help me cook. Because what? It's not just the gathering, cooking together is fun too.
Absolutely. No, when I was looking at your manuscript, I thought, oh, there's too much good here for me to tackle in one bite. So giving yourself the freedom to say, yeah, this party, these 3 are going on there. And then I'm supplementing again. Otherwise we might get paralyzed into thinking, if I'm going to do it, I have to do it all. And I think that's probably something that our grandmothers and mothers would both say, no, you don't. You open the door and let people come in and get what they have and enjoy what you have made. So Mumtaz, do you have any in particular that you're thinking about for the coming season? When you think about your book, what would you like people to check out?
Well, I do think in terms of summer, the Heartland board did capture the essence of it, with just the fresh produce, the beautiful colors, the combination of recipes. It really makes you feel happy and summery. So, and I would say in terms of something else that comes to mind, the British tea board, and I will say summer because that is a big part of the high tea is something that we grew up with, being a big part of the summer piece of it with the cucumber sandwiches. And, it's got Laura's homemade scones, and we have fresh jam. And so it feels very kind of, like springy.
Outdoor picnic. Yep.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
beautiful. You're making me want to go make those immediately. I'm wondering, after you've done this, so you've done the whole kit and caboodle, beginning, middle, end, you have a cookbook out in stores very soon. We're recording this right before the release. I've heard the word on the street is that creating a cookbook and publishing it is not for the faint of heart. There are so many steps, so many pieces, so many things that have to come together, not just visually, but also the prose. I mean, you guys, I write books, but I just get to do them my own darn self. No one comes to my house with a photographer. So I'd love, now that we're at the end of it, I would love to hear from both of you if there's something that surprised or delighted you about this process. And then also something that you might think, I will never do that again. Give us the inside scoop as cookbook authors, what that looked like. Laura, you want to start? Anything that surprised you or that you thought, nope, not doing that again?
I'm not sure. I mean, it was just this particular one. I think one of the things we came across that was the hardest was that all of the things had to be done for the board at the same time and looking fresh and styled. And that, whereas when I did the Christmas cookbook, I was shooting things one at a time. So I could break it up however I wanted to. If I wanted to shoot 3 things in a day, I'd do 3 and then I would do them individually. But this had to be everything at the same time. And then we needed to shoot them individually. And quite often, by the time we got done with the main shot, the food wasn't looking so good anymore.
Right. Oh my heavens.
And that meant that we had to redo them for individual shots. And that we did that for quite a few.
Oh, for the love of money. And you are, Laura, are you the principal photographer for this as well? Yeah.
Yeah. And Mumtaz would probably be the principal food stylist. So she was there like in her hands and they're just, and I'm at the camera and I'm like, move this, that looks, and then come look at this.
Oh my goodness.
We shoot tethered. So the camera is connected to the computer. So you can see right away if you got the shot or not. And sometimes, since we're both designers too, and this is the process that we do that I don't think other people do, is every once in a while, we'll take that shot and we will actually put it into a layout and see, does it work in the layout? And that's not something that other photographers even can do because they're not also designers.
Privy to the design. Yeah. Wow, that sounds exhausting. Where does this happen? Where does one shoot a cookbook? Is this in your home? I asked because Laura, you worked on Brie McCoy's cookbook. You were the designer and photographer for that.
Mumtaz was
Mumtaz,
the food
you did as
stylist.
well. So I talked with Brie earlier this season, and she has a beautiful. It's absolutely lovely. The final product is just gorgeous, and you two did that as well. That was in her house, I believe. You went to her home and kind of set up shop. Is that right? And is that what you did as well?
We did. We shot some of it in her house near Washington, D.C. It was a crazy, chaotic time, but we got a lot done. I think Brie was probably a little stressed out by us because Mumtaz and I, when we get started, we don't usually stop. We're fighting against the sun, and we don't usually take any breaks. We just take a little bite where we can, and we want to get the best light that we can. But then we did the second part here at my house, which is actually easier because I have a space that has a lot of light, and then the kitchen is pretty big. So,
Bree's, you're talking about Bree's book you did in your kitchen.
Yeah, Bree came to Michigan.
Oh,
yeah,
I didn't
she
know.
did.
So what about for you two? What about Graze and Gather? Where did you shoot that?
Oh, we did both. Mumtaz, if you want to.
Yeah, we did both. Well, 90% was at Laura's, and 20% was in Brooklyn. I have a small 1-bedroom with a balcony, but I have an outdoor space. It was very challenging because when we were doing it downstairs, we had to carry everything. So we had to recruit a bunch of friends, and we had trolleys, and we had things going up and down, and it was getting hot, and things were melting, and we were melting, and then the light would change. And so while, it was very challenging. I mean, we did one in the balcony. So yeah, Laura's was because it's such a beautiful space. She has it calibrated, especially now, with all the photography, with the light and everything. It's perfect, the perfect ovens and the perfect kind of counter space. So that was easy. I mean, nothing's easy. It was
Yeah.
but that
Easier.
was easier. But yeah, we did like 10 to 15% Laura at my place, right? But the rest was at yours.
Wow. It sounds like a mammoth process involving a lot of people who can catch your vision and make it happen. And then also fighting light, and the melting. I hadn't thought of how things get wonky. Wow, what a gig. I'm wondering, now that you have a book that is this beautiful, that inspires me to go make my own scones and my own brioche buns. I'm not sure about that. I might outsource that piece. What does real life look like in your own kitchens? So we know what it can look like on these pages, but what are you looking forward to making in your own kitchens now? I've talked with other cookbook authors over the years that by the time the book is out, they absolutely don't want to cook anything out of the cookbook. I feel that way about my own books. I don't want to read one paragraph. I've been looking at this stuff for so long, I never want to read it again. What is exciting you or making you feel motivated to be in the kitchen now? And it can be something completely different than what you've written about in Gather and Graze. Mumtaz, do you have anything that you're looking forward to making? It sounds like you're going to be eating a lot of beautiful food with your family in the next few days.
I will actually. I do agree that I did not want to look at food or cooking or a kitchen for at least 2 months post our shoot. But I am ready. I did actually go and teach my uncle's chef a couple of dishes while I was here. And I've been, going and learning a few dishes, just, gathering knowledge as I could go along. So I have a few recipes from here that I want to go back and try in my kitchen and have my friends try them out. Yeah.
Do you have a hard time finding the right ingredients in Brooklyn that you would need? Any spices or anything you have to take home, or everything's there? Brooklyn probably has, New York probably has most of what you would need, I would think.
Well, Amazon, Whole Foods, we have a lot of great world market kind of grocery shops. So yes, it's very easy to find things there.
Okay, you have to tell me specifically one dish that you're excited to try or to cook, or what did you teach your uncle's chef? I want to know about that. I've never taught a chef anything. So what made the list for that?
Well, it's you might, the two dishes that you've probably never heard of. It's from my dad is from a state called Hyderabad. So their dishes, one is called khatte aloo, which means spicy and sweet potatoes. And that's kind of slow cooked in spices and onions and ginger and garlic. And the other one is a chicken dish, which is made with jalapeno peppers that are stuffed with spices. So they're very specific dishes. I'm not sure they would appeal to most people.
Are you kidding? That sounds amazing. Both of those. Lucky chef that he had you giving a tutorial. I almost said that smells amazing. I'm assuming it smells amazing.
It smells intense. You
but I love it.
For a while.
Oh, I love it. Laura, what is getting you into the kitchen these days after shooting 5 million of your own recipes?
Well, I'm on a new project right now, a pie cookbook. So whether I want to or not, I am making like 5 to 6 pies every weekend.
Oh my!
I'm in the testing phase. And one of the ones I'm really excited about right now is I'm developing a croque madame galette.
Okay.
So I'm excited to make that and to taste it.
Oh my goodness, you are neck deep in pastry. I'm just wondering if your neighbors have a particular fondness for you, because I'm assuming you can't possibly eat all 5 or 6 pies every weekend. Do people like to be your friend, Laura? Do you find people on your front step looking hungry?
Yeah, well, I bring them into work and share them there. And I have to admit, there's been a couple that just didn't get eaten and the chickens got them.
Gosh, lucky chickens.
I know. I feel bad about that, but at least I know it's not going in the trash. They're going to turn them into eggs for me.
All of Laura's neighbors, are you listening? You need to be proactive in putting your name in. My goodness, the chickens are getting what you could have. Okay, final question. I always like to ask my guests about things that inspire them and continue to inspire them. I call this the book nerd question. I think that's just my own name. But now that your book is on the shelf, almost on the shelf, and you, I'm assuming, have shelves of cookbooks yourselves, I would love to hear, what is your most dog-eared, beloved, butter-spattered, grease-spattered cookbook in your own collection that you return to over and over? Mumtaz, we can start with you.
That is a tough question, but I will say one of my favorite books is a chef called Ottolenghi.
Oh,
And
yes.
I do love, from his vegetarian books to his, the slightly more evolved books. I've learned a lot about Middle Eastern food, and I've actually made sure to go to his restaurant when I was in London last. So that's every time he's out with a book, I'm there, and I love going back because he has so many variations of each and every dish. Like there's 75 ways of how to make a hummus. So it's the gift that keeps giving. So I do keep.
Wonderful. That's a great recommendation. Everything I've ever had coming out of those cookbooks has been extraordinary. I think I have there's a salad involving pomegranate, arils, and I'm blanking on some of the other things. It was so over the moon. I craved it for about 3 weeks after eating it. So I hear you. Oh, delightful. Laura, what is your most beloved, most dog-eared cookbook in your kitchen?
I have a Martha Stewart basic baking, like it covers everything. Okay. And the thing about that book is that everything works. Like you can tell it's just been tested and tested and tested. So it's almost like an encyclopedia for going to just about anything. You want to make caramel, you want to make lemon curd, you want to, it's all there. So that's probably the one that's the most dirty in my cookbook. I mean, in my kitchen. But one of the books that's not a cookbook about food that's probably changed my way of looking at food the most is Michael Pollan's The Omnivore's Dilemma. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't read it, it's a fabulous look at how we make food in this country. Mm-hmm. And it's changed how I purchase food and how I try to make food from whole ingredients instead of using packaged foods.
Both fantastic recommendations. We'll make sure that all of those are in the show notes so people can find out what you're talking about. Thank you both for joining us. Mumtaz, thank you for joining me at a late hour of your day. And Laura, for joining me in your beautiful kitchen with forsythia blooming in the background. You guys make beautiful spaces. So thank you so much. And I'm so excited about your book. I hope all folks can get a chance to pick up a copy. It's called Gather and Graze, Globally Inspired Small Bites and Gorgeous Tablescapes for Every Occasion. I think you're going to inspire so many people to open up their doors wide to their people and gather to enjoy each other's company and some really delicious food. So congratulations and thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having us. It was so fun.
Yeah, thank you. This was wonderful. I'm so glad my internet didn't crack.
Totally worked.
Yeah.